text, and everyone in Israel uses his own term to Judea and Samaria, or to the occupied territories, or to the West Bank. I'm using Judea and Samaria because we are talking about an area that today, from right and from left, we agree that part of it will be in Israeli hands in the future. The other part, there is a big argument about them, and we will speak about it in a moment. But in order to understand, I want to show you on the map, all this area actually today from the Dead Sea, which you see over there. And this is not a good map, but it's just to give you some perspective. Until around a bit down from Bet Shean Valley. This is Judea and Samaria, and to the west you see all this area with the points. It's actually Judea and Samaria, which when Samaria it's on the upper side, and Judea it's down. And this is next to the Dead Sea. It's the Judea desert. Okay? If you are going down, if you are going back in history, in those places you will read all the stories about great heroes, and about the Hashmonaim, and about Bar Kokhba, and about Bar Kokhba had also operated his forces in other places, but many stories from the Bible and from the Second Temple period and from other periods were actually took part in those places. Okay, so this is just for the knowledge to understand what I'm talking about.
Actually, I didn't realize that.
Now I'm going to Oslo agreements in the 90s. 93, Rabin, Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, and Yasser Arafat signing an agreement, the Oslo agreements. You all know that after that, extreme right-wing Jewish killed him in Tel Aviv, in the center of Tel Aviv, in Kikar Rabin, what we call today Kikar Rabin, and in the past we call it the Circle of the Kings of Israel. And what Rabin signed is actually agreement to give the Palestinians autonomy on different cities. And the first one who talks about autonomy to the Palestinians, the first one to speak about it and to raise this idea is actually Begin in Camp David. When he's signing agreement with the Egyptians, it's also, and a lot of Israelis, by the way, forget today that the first one to sign, to put this idea on the table was actually a right-wing leader. And the first one to speak about autonomy for the Palestinians is Begin, and he's talking about a kind of a shape between independent state and or people without citizenship. And the autonomy that Rabin started in the 90s became after that with Netanyahu help, with the Netanyahu support, and with Netanyahu as Prime Minister continuing the same process, becoming what you see now. And it's very difficult to understand it, but I will give you explanation. What you see now in a very strong way, it's actually those places that you see in this map. Those places are actually under the Palestinian control. Here you can see Jericho, here you can see Ramallah, this is Nablus, this is Bethlehem, this is Hebron, the main cities, and those main cities become a part of the Palestinian Authority. Now in the other side of the map, and I know that it's because of my presentation, but try to imagine, to use your imagination in order to understand it. In the second part, and it's not easy to understand also, you see all those points? Those actually are the settlements. Now try to put those points on this map, and you will get the complexity of Judea and Samaria, which you actually have parts of Palestinian autonomy, Palestinian authority, and inside of that you have many settlements. Now, there are three different types inside Judea and Samaria of areas: A, B, and C. Okay? A, it's full autonomy of the Palestinians. They have a full control on the territory, and they have also monopoly on power, which means that they have their own police. We are not talking about military forces, but they have their own police. And until 2002, from Oslo Agreement, no Israeli soldier could get into those territories without the permission of the PA. And I will explain you in a moment how come the 2002 become the crucial point. B, it means that it's under Palestinian government, but without any military control, which means that the Israeli forces are controlled militarily, they control the area. But those parts, A and B, those parts full of Palestinians and without even one settler. Now, as you see the map, they have no continuity. So, actually, if one wants to go from Ramallah to Bethlehem, he needs to cross a few today it's one checkpoint. And if he wants to cross from here, today he can cross from here to here without checkpoint, but if he wants to cross to Jerusalem, of course, he needs to cross also checkpoint, which is one of the issues that the Palestinians using in order to explain why the current situation is unacceptable for them. Now, in 2000, as you know, there was the second Intifada. Yasser Arafat decided that after he sat with Ehud Barak in Camp David again, and this is the better map. Here you can see general vision of the areas of the PA. This is the Mediterranean Sea. This is the area of Tel Aviv here, and this one you can see here. This is Jerusalem, which is you can see here. Those are the part of. This is the green line, the lines that you see. Now, the green points are actually B territory, and those are A. The cities are A. After those are the Oslo agreements, and those are the agreements in the 90s. In 2005, with the disengagement plan, they evacuate most of the territories here in the north of the Samaria, including Gaza, which is here. Okay, just to give you some thought about how it looks like. Now, in 2000, Arafat decided that he wants to take another approach, and he thought that he can force, or at least convince, the Israelis to give him more than they offered him. Now, what Barak offered him is this, which was, we said before that the Palestinians didn't miss opportunity to miss opportunities. So what Barak offered him actually was this territory, not including the blue parts. The blue parts are the settlements blocks. What the Palestinians asked in this negotiation was the second map. You see the blue is very small, and they actually asked all the territory and to minimize the places of the settlements blocks. Now, of course, that it's not reasonable. Just to give you numbers, in those settlement blocks, there are more than 350,000 people that live there, in cities, in villages. In the place next to Jerusalem, which they didn't include, there are more or less about 300,000 people that live there. There is no prime minister in Israel that can evacuate, even if you believe in a biblical peace, and even if you think that tomorrow morning Noah is going to come with a olive in his mouth. There is no prime minister that politically can evacuate almost 1 million people from those territories, and what the Palestinians ask actually is not something that is reasonable or visible. And in that point, Arafat decided that in order to shrink those blue parts, it's worth to go to a second Intifada. Now, Arafat, as many other Arabic leaders, saw the Israeli society as a net of, as a net of spider. Spider? Web, sorry. Spider web. And this is what actually Nasrallah called the Israeli society before the 2006 war. A wealthy society, a tired society, a Western society is ahead, that people that have no ability or no will to go to wars, people that are afraid for wars, people that want to have peaceful life and prefer to compromise everything, but just not to go to another war. And he got it wrong, as Nasrallah got it wrong and admitted after that, after the 2006 war. And when he started this military strike or this terrorist attack against Israel, he lost everything. Because at the beginning it was very hard, and I remember day by day with all the suicide bombers, and many Israelis thought that maybe it's impossible, and I talked about it in the first lecture last week, maybe it's impossible, many Israelis thought that maybe it's impossible to defeat this kind of terrorist organizations, and many Israelis thought that it's impossible to stop phenomena like suicide bombers, because those people are willing to sacrifice themselves and nothing can stop them. And a lot of Israelis, even ex-generals, many politicians, said that we cannot get into those cities from the last map, you remember, that belong to the PA, because at the moment that you will get there, to those small neighborhoods, to those kasbah, as we call it in Arabic and also in Hebrew, very tight, small neighborhoods, which you can cross only man by man. They all thought that it's going to be disaster and we will have many casualties. But in 2002, after what we call Black Mirth, after that suicide bomber got into a park hotel in Netanya, in the middle of Passover dinner, and killed many Israelis, Sharon decided that he is starting a new operation inside those territories, and the IDF has started with all those cities. And at the end of the day, in 2005, actually this Intifada was vanished, and Arafat also, and all the prosperity and the investments. And in 2000, I would like to remind you that in 2000, the PA had, I think, one of the biggest states or authorities or whatever you can call it with the highest level of investments and donations in the world. And the economic inside the Palestinian Authority was increasing day by day. And actually they lost everything. And in 2005, after Israel gained control again on the territories and started to create a defense border on different parts of those territories in order to prevent suicide bombers, the Intifada or the IDF defeated the terrorist groups that were belong to Arafat and to the Hamas. And after that, actually, from 2005, in 2007, you can see that we had only one suicide bomber inside Israel, which means that, and after that in 2008, and from that point, there are no suicide bombers. There was another one that tried to make a suicide, but we have no suicide bomber. We still have, I will say it like this, there are still people in Judea and Samaria, there are still people from the Palestinian authorities that are trying to make or to initiate different terrorist attacks, but it's in a small numbers, and it's under, in general, it's under control. It's not, it doesn't mean that it's real peaceful and fun to live there and to be under threat all the time, but it's something that it's a phenomenon that's under control. Now, the Palestinians refuse to this offer, even though that, as you see, it's almost the majority of Judea and Samaria. When I sat with them in 2012, January 2012, they spoke one of the sentences that they said, it's about that they're willing to give up on the west side, which is Israel. Of course, they gave up about it. They didn't give up. We gained control in 48. They're willing to give up on this part, and they're also ready to give up on about 1.2% of the territory, which means less than this part. Again, nothing that is visible, nothing that it can an Israeli Prime Minister can do, and nothing that touched with the reality on the ground. Now what you see here is actually another offer that Olmert had in order to advance another peace agreement with Abu Mazen. Now, in Condoleezza Rice's book, there is a chapter that she is describing this offer and how Abu Mazen ran away. Olmert says that if he is, and this is his own political, and I respect Olmert even though that he is corrupted, he said that, and I disagree with him almost about everything, but this is his offer, by the way, to have something like that, with the blue, with this line over there. And Olmert says that if he would become a prime minister again, probably could deliver this map to the Palestinians. But to the matter of fact, Abu Mazen refused also to this map, which was also very liberate, and I'm not sure that the Israeli public opinion would accept it if Olmert would sign on that, and if Olmert would go to elections, I'm not sure that it would pass. But in any case, Abu Mazen refused again. In this map, and in the map of Ehud Barak, one of the questions that I mentioned before, Jerusalem, in those maps were still open question. One of the possibilities is to separate between Jewish neighborhoods and Arabic neighborhoods, and since most of the Israelis are not willing, even those that you promised them tomorrow morning peace agreement, and this is by the polls, to give up on historical Jerusalem, which means, for example, the Kotel, which was part of the Jordanian territory before 1967, and which mean on the Temple Mount, which even though that today the Waqf, which is the Jordanian authority for holy places, have control on those parts, Israel is still has sovereignty of those places. On those historical sites, it will be, by those plans, will be kind of international rule with Israel, Palestinians, and others. All those assumptions based on conclusions belong in Israel to the left, that it's possible to sign an agreement with the Palestinians and to maintain this agreement for many years with different guarantees from other actors like the US. Now I would like to speak about the opportunity or about the options. When Netanyahu stood in Bar Ilan University, in Begin-Sadat Center, which was in the past part of my academic home. When Netanyahu stood there and said that he is going to a two-state solution program, he talked about one thing and the world understand another thing. And this is the basic problem that exists until today. Netanyahu didn't mean that he is willing to give up and to go back to 67 borders. He even didn't think that he's going to go back to the lines that you see over there, including the only those settlements blocks. He thought that he is willing to give the Palestinians a kind of a process that in the end of the day will create some kind of demilitarized state, if there is any kind of possibility to sign an agreement. And more than that, since the American pressed him to the wall, and this is the period, just to remind you, the Obama government is in its first cadention as a president. He forced the Israelis, after a lot of pressure, to freeze the settlements for 10 months. After that, he asked again from the Prime Minister Netanyahu to freeze again the settlements, and Netanyahu refused because he has a lot of criticism, his own base, as he called it, his voters in the right wing, and Netanyahu refused. And Netanyahu have to do something in order to take Obama off his back. And what he's doing is to declare on the two-state solution, but no one understands what it means. And in the right wing, there are people that interpret his speech as a kind of a way to run away from the American pressure. In the left, there are people that explain his approach as something unpredictable, but without any real means. And at the end of the day, Israel finding itself at the same point. Now, what the opportunities that Israel have today, or what are the options that we have today? What are the plans that we have on the table? First of all, there are people, Israelis, that are talking about the full annexation of the territory. All Judea and Samaria will become part of big Israel. The border will be we will have a state between the sea and the Jordan Valley, as we have in the Israeli maps. It's all Israel. We have the Israel that we thought about, that if you're looking on the natural borders, it's the most fitable and the most reasonable. But we have only one problem. Palestinians. which means that we have 2 million Palestinians inside Judea and Samaria. Now, it's not only problem with 2 million Palestinians, but it's problem also how you count those Palestinians. Because the right wing in Israel, part of the right wing in Israel, counting the Palestinians, and his outcomes that we have only 1.5 million Palestinians inside Judea and Samaria. The other part of the political map count 2.5 million Palestinians. By the way, as a historian, I must tell you that this is a unique situation. The only time in history that I remember that 1 million people vanished to here or to here. And one day someone will have some research how it happened, but we have a debate on 1 million people. It doesn't matter. Let's say that we have 2 million people, a number in the middle. 2 million people of Palestinians inside Judea and Samaria. Now, if you starting in an accession program of all those territories, it means that if you are a democratic country and you believe in democracy, it means that you need to give them a full citizenship. Now, if you hear what Ruby Rivlin, the current president, is talking about, and he's coming from, he's grew up on the heritage of Jabotinsky, they believe the two sides of the Jordan Valley, and both of them belong to us. שתי גדות לירדן, זו שלנו וזו גם כן in Hebrew. So, Ruby Rivlin believes that at the end of the day, all those areas will become the state of Israel, and the Palestinian will get a full citizenship. For me, it's a disaster. Why? I don't know if you heard about MK member Hanin Zouabi from one of the parties inside Israel. If I have like 40 Hanin Zouabi in the Knesset today, for me it's a disaster, huge problem in order to maintain a normal state inside a normal society. And in order to create, here you are talking about societies that can contain different streams and different immigrations from different places, and they all mix into one big societies that believe in the same values. I know that you have problems, but I'm talking generally. In order to contain those Palestinians inside the Israeli society, it means that first of all we need to prove that we had the ability to contain the Israeli Arabs inside the Israeli society. Now, unfortunately, and I think that it's because of us, first of all because we didn't force them to be citizens, to have full service in, not in the army, but they could serve in civil service inside Israel. I'm talking about the Israeli Arabs, citizens. And the fact that we couldn't do that until now, and still there are gaps between inside Israel that before 67, the fact that we still have gaps between those two societies, it bring me to conclusion, or it gave me to big doubts about the possibility to contain 2 million Palestinians inside Israel. So this is one aspect. In the right wing, there are also a few people that says, okay, let's do some smart thing, Kunstpatent, we will annex all the territories, but without the Palestinians. How you can do that, I have no good answer. But this is part of the ideas that we have, especially in the extreme right wing. There are also people in those same parts that believe that they can, when you speak with them about the demographic problem, which is, it doesn't matter if it's 1.5 million or 2.5 million or 2 million, they are talking about, and I spoke with one Minister Deputy of Transportation, which is a friend of mine, but in this part she is not very smart. She is talking about how to bring 2 million Jews from the US and to bring them to force them or to convince them to do Aliyah. And then she will change the Israeli demographic in Judea and Samaria. I told her that when she is doing that and the Mashiach is coming, I'm willing to support her. Meanwhile, there are the other part who believe or support on a plan like this, or the plan that you saw before that, to have a completely, to withdraw from the Judea and Samaria to the 67 borders. Now there are different offers. Part of them offering just to do that to the settlement blocks, which is the part that you saw in the map before that. And then it means that they will have to take care only for 100,000 settlers, and it's more or less, they will have 12% of the territory. They are talking about process without any kind of agreement with the Palestinians, just by Israeli decision. Right now in the Israeli arenas, there is no support to this kind of step, especially after the disengagement from Gaza, after we saw that when you withdraw from a territory without any agreement, you find yourself in operation time after time at the same place. There are people that are talking about status quo, which means to stay at the same position and do not do anything. Gideon Saar, which is the minister or the internal minister, is talking about status quo. Now, what you are doing with the criticism in the world regarding the vision of Israel and our policy about Judea and Samaria, he didn't answer. Another program that we have inside Israel, which is belong to Naftali Bennett, the head of the Beit Yehudi party, which is in the right, is to annex sea territory. And all those territories to annex, and the Palestinian territory to try to make some continuity. Now, if you are looking on the map, actually the white areas, part of them are, or the white areas are actually today, and it's not easy to say that, but they are free from Jews. There are no Jews in those areas. And when 1 year ago Netanyahu asked the Palestinians if they are willing to accept settlers inside a future hypothetical Palestinian state, they refused. But those areas are free from settlers, which means that if Israel wants tomorrow morning to create some continuity and to create some roads, that you can see this is not a real map. This is a map that it's one of the possibilities, but it's not a real map, so it's possible. But as you see, it doesn't look good. The map, if you want to create a Palestinian state that look like that, all those areas, and look like between octopus and whatever, it doesn't look good, but this is what they have today, which means that it's more or less 40% of the territory of Judea and Samaria. The settlements blocks, it's about 12%.
That's the blue area.
It's not. It's less than the blue. It's less than the blue, but the settlements blocks, it's about 12% based on the blue. Now you see that the blue is getting into the white because there are settlements that inside the territory. What I have done here is actually to paint in blue all the areas that you have settlements.
Yeah.
If you don't want to evacuate even one settlement, it will look like this.
Yeah, with the access roads.
Okay? Now, what you see here, it's actually the Jordan Valley, and if you remember the first map of Alon plan, this is part of the areas that is very easy, by the way, because there are no many Palestinians over there, and there are settlers that live there. Now, in order to understand what is the main challenge, and with that I will summarize and will open it to questions. In order to understand what is the main challenge today is the question that the world asks and the international community is asking Israel: what is the status of those Palestinians that live in Judea and Samaria? Now, if you are saying, let's take for example my parents that live in Elkanah, which is somewhere here, okay? Very close to the Green Line. They have village next to them. They are Israeli citizens. What is the status and what is the position of the people that live next to them in Bidia or in Mescha, which are two villages that next to them? And this is a question that a democratic country and a Jewish state should ask itself and should give answers. Now, the left is offering today to drop off from those territories into the without the settlement blocks, and to drop off, and all those people will become Palestinian citizens. The people, the Palestinians that live inside the settlement blocks, will become Israeli citizens. The right, let's take Naftali Bennett, the head of the Beit Yehudi program, offered to annex the places that you see in blue and the Jordan Valley, and to give the Palestinians that live there a full citizenship, which is more or less, there is also a debate on numbers between 50,000 to 100,000. Most of the Israelis, like yourself, do not focusing on the small details and on the maps and where, and it's very complicated, as you see, to understand it completely. And most of the Israelis at the same time, if you are checking, and I know we just spoke about what Yossi Alevi said here before, 1 month ago, more or less. So we spoke about the fact that 70% of the Israelis are willing to Palestinian state and 70% are have concerns regarding Palestinian state. I will say differently. The majority of the Israelis would like to see a kind of separation program. They would like to separate themselves from the Palestinians. The utopic dream is not to see Palestinians in the morning. The utopic dream is not to have intifada in the morning without any political correct. I'm saying that. The utopic dream is not to have occupation all the time and that people will not blame them for occupation. The utopic dream is not to criticize by the world. And at the same time, they concern are based on the fact that if you are doing some kind of evacuation of those areas, if you are going back, you will have another Hamastan, another terrorist state. Now, 1 month ago, Netanyahu stood in the INSS, another think tank in Israel, and he said 3 elements that I think that fit to most of the Israelis. First of all, he said we need to find a way to separate ourselves economically and politically from the Palestinians. Something that's happening today and might increase in the future if there is no intifada. Third, he said it's impossible to separate ourselves militarily from the Palestinians. And what you see this map is more or less the limitations that the Israeli public opinion is ready to accept, if you want to say that. More or less, those white areas are already belong to the Palestinians. They have flag, they have monopoly on power, and yes, they have from time to time visitors from the IDF if there are terrorist attacks or other organizations. This part in the east is the Jordan Valley with Israelis, but with not a lot of Palestinians. Those blue parts it's not those blue parts. Part of the blue parts, especially the parts with the lines that you see here, are the settlements blocks, which is more or less 12%. And between them, inside those places, not all of them, you have more or less 100,000 Palestinians, 100,000 settlers. Now, today there is another approach inside the Israeli political arena, which is to minimize the conflict. if one understands that it's impossible to put end to the conflict, to finish it in a utopic way, the new approach or the pragmatic approach that most of the Israelis are getting closer to it is to minimize the conflict, which means to decide what parts are belong to us right now and then to see them as parts of Israel, which is the settlement blocks, more or less between 12% to 6%, depend where you are coming from in the Israeli political map, to understand, and there is part in Israel and that until today do not recognize the fact that 20 years ago we gave all those territories, 40% of the territories to the Palestinians, to understand that 40% of the territories belong to the Palestinians today. You can call them as you want. There are many Israelis that are afraid from the word state, a demilitarized state, so you can call them as you want. It doesn't matter, kangaroo, cat, state, empire, whatever. And there are debatable areas between them, which is more or less, if you are taking 40% and 12%, you have debatable parts between them of about 48%, which no one has a good answer how to take care of them. There are different approaches. Part of it is to separate, or to those 100,000 Palestinians will have a Palestinian citizenship, 100,000 Jews will have an Israeli citizenship, the military will be between them, or other solution. Now, the good thing in this kind of approach is, first of all, since you are not putting end to the conflict, it means that you don't need to finalize the conflict, and you don't mean that the Palestinians will recognize Israel as a Jewish state, which is now one of the demands the Palestinians refuse. By the way, one should ask himself why the Palestinians refuse to recognize Israel in the 67 border as a Jewish state, but this is another issue. And at the same time, Israel do not need to recognize other things or to accept the fact that there is incitement inside the Palestinian authorities. There are people that call to eliminate Israel, and there is no real stability in the close future. And after I said that, most of the Israelis are very pessimistic about the fact, about the options that we will be able to sign a real agreement with the Palestinians. And most of the Israelis today, it can change, and you see that the Israeli public opinion has changed from time to time with a real connection to what's happening in the negotiations or with Palestinians' terrorist attacks on different places. But today most of the Israelis believe or think that we have that the next future we will find ourselves in different rounds of conflicts and wars against the Palestinians. It doesn't mean that we do not need to do a real effort to achieve peace, but it means that most of the Israelis are very skeptical. I'm sorry that I'm finishing with not an optimistic approach. The optimistic approach that at the end of the day, in Ramallah and in Ariel or in Tel Aviv, there are people that all they want is to live peacefully and to make money and to bring food to their kids. Unfortunately, there are also extreme voices, and the balance between them is what will influence the future of the Middle East. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we can open it to questions. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the possibility of including the land swaps that you often hear about. You mentioned that.
So I didn't mention the land swaps because since the Palestinians, as you saw the map in Camp David, since the Palestinians tried to minimize it to something that's impossible, one of the offers was to make swaps, to bring them, to give them some territory in other places. Actually, if you're looking on the map, on the Israeli map, there is no possibility to make swaps next to the Judean Samaria. What they offered in the past is to make swaps very close to Gaza. I will put them up, which is here. in this direction, if you can see it. Now, to make swaps next to Gaza, when Abu Mazen is not controlling Gaza today, it doesn't mean anything. So there are different approaches, but the swaps, it's not the obstacle to peace. There are different obstacles. If we will get to the point that the swap will be on the ground, I think that we will be able to do something. There is another program which created by Lieberman and disturbed a lot the Israeli Arabic citizens to make swaps with Arabic cities that very close to Judea and Samaria. Now it was interesting movement because most of the Arabic leaders, and just this week, part of the three Knesset members of Balad, which is one of the Arabic parties, went to Qatar to meet with terrorist leaders like Khaled Mashal. And Qatar, as you know, support the Hamas. And those leaders, I'm not talking about the people, most of the Israeli Arab civilians are willing, and I think they want to be part of democratic country as Israel, even those that criticize Israel in many aspects. Them leaders are leading them to a very bad point, and those Knesset members went to Qatar. Now, when you ask those Knesset members how they see Israel, they will criticize Israel from bottom to top. But when you ask them if they are ready to be part of the Palestinian state, not transfer or something like that, just to put the border somewhere else that will include those cities, they will say that you are, and this is what they blame Lieberman, they said that he is racist. Now what's interesting, it's all, the different approaches, different claims, but what's interesting, at the same sentence, and also part of the Israeli left blamed Lieberman as a racist, what's interesting is that all those plans that you see are talking about taking the border back to 67 inside Jerusalem and to take all those Arabic Palestinians that live in East Jerusalem back to the Palestinian state, which by all polls, they do not want to be part of the Palestinian state. They prefer, in future hypothetical solution, to be part of Israel. So this is not that easy, and people that declare about different approaches believe in other things when they come into the ground. Yeah.
If you have a problem between the connection of Gaza and Judea, Samaria, West Bank, whatever, is there not a possibility of doing like a three-state solution?
So this is a part of the declaration that or the title that I gave this meeting. Maybe we will have three-state solution. I don't know. Right now, if you ask me, the Gaza, it's a kind of a state. They have monopoly on power. All the signs of a state they have. They have monopoly on power. They have flags. They have territory. They even hate us like a real enemy.
And they have an army also.
Yeah, and I don't know right